The Grand Overture machine gun got a really nice buff in Season 19 that greatly improved the weapon. Bungie increased the missile damage on Grand Overture by 50%. For those unfamiliar with the weapon, the Grand Overture is an exotic arc machine gun, and it's really unique because it's a slow-firing, high-damage machine gun. As you land hits with the weapon, you will be loading and stacking missiles for its alternate mode. This stacks up to 20 missiles, but at any time you can hold reload and fire the weapon to launch all of those missiles in a barrage. This is the part of the weapon that saw that 50% damage buff. As you can see from some of the gameplay, it does absolutely insane damage when we fire all 20 missiles, especially when we stack it with the right build and debuffs. My name is Gray. If you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription is greatly appreciated. Now let's get into it. Grand Overture is extremely strong on its own, but when we pair it with the right subclass, mods, and debuffs, we can make it even stronger and turn it into a boss melting machine. Now I'm sure everyone's very familiar with Arc Titan at this point, but I am going to go over the subclass and mods, then we'll talk about some of the seasonal mods and weapons we want to use, because that's what's really going to allow us to get the most out of this. Now starting off the build, we are going to be using the tried and true Heart of Inmost Light. I know everyone uses this exotic all the time, but for Arc Titan in particular, it's incredibly powerful. This makes it so every time we use one of our abilities, a grenade, melee, or our class ability, it buffs the other two. It's a really easy loop, especially with Arc Titan. I'm sure you guys know about this by now. It's incredible and a very strong exotic for Titans. Now taking a look at the subclass, I am using Thunder Crash. It's really nice to add in some additional burst damage after that barrage with Grand Overture. I do recommend using the Thruster class ability. It's very easy to add into the loop with Heart of Inmost Light and allows us to buff our other two abilities all the time. I am using the Shoulder Charge ability. You can really use whichever melee you want. I just prefer the Shoulder Charge. It's a nice mobility tool and it does decent damage. We are going to want to use Storm Grenades. Obviously, they're insanely OP on Arc Titan, especially when we pair it with Touch of Thunder, which makes those Storm Grenades even stronger. Makes it so they last longer and they roam around for a longer duration. Our other aspect will be Knockout. This makes it so critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your melee attacks with Arc Energy and increases your melee range. It also makes it so defeating targets with melee attacks starts our health regeneration and makes us amplified. It's very passive, but it gives us some nice survivability. For our fragments, I am using Spark of Magnitude. This makes it so our lingering grenades last longer, and we pair that with Spark of Shock, which makes it so they jolt targets. This is going to make it so our storm grenades do chain lightning on everything they hit. I then take Spark of Feedback. This makes it so taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. This isn't necessary, but it does add plus 10 resilience, which can help you hit that 100 resilience mark. I then also take Spark of Resistance, which makes it so when we're surrounded by combatants, we are more resistant to incoming damage. This is actually nice. It comes into play more often than you'd think, and again, gives us more survivability. You can sort of experiment with these fragments a little bit. The Catalyst on Grand Overture does make it so you can blind enemies. You may be able to find some synergy there, but it's not necessary for the build. Now moving on to our weapons and mods, it's very straightforward here. It's going to be a very classic elemental well setup. The first mod we're going to take is Melee Wellmaker on our helmet. This makes it so anytime we use our shoulder charge, it's going to generate an elemental well. We will then also take Elemental Ordnance. This makes it so our grenades will also generate elemental wells. So both our melee and grenade will be generating wells for us. On our chest piece, I am taking Bountiful Wells. This isn't necessary for the build, just a nice one to have. This will make it so we create 2 elemental wells anytime we use our melee or grenade. Finally, we pair that with Font of Might. This is very important and allows us to get some extra damage out of Grand Overture. This will add a 25% increase to all of our arc damage whenever we pick up an elemental well. If you can line it up and time it properly with the missile barrage, that's how you can get some absolutely ridiculous damage. On our class item, we are taking advantage of some seasonal mods. The one I want to point out that's most important is Weakened Clear. Whenever we use a grenade launcher, damaging a boss, damaging a champion, or breaking a shield reloads your stowed weapons and weakens the combatant. So what you'll want to do here when going up against a boss, you'll want to fire your grenade launcher at them to debuff them, and then switch to Grand Overture, toggle that missile mode, and unload it on them. So they'll have a 15% debuff when you're hitting them with that missile barrage. If you can also line up things like Font of Might, you'll be deleting things left and right. I also like to take Low Entropy Superconductor. This makes it so our arc melee will stun unstoppable champions. It's very nice to have. Surprisingly, using the shoulder charge is actually really helpful with this. Like I said, I do recommend using a grenade launcher. I am using one in my kinetic slot. There's a lot of great options here. The Lingering Dread from the Duality Dungeon is a fantastic option. But you could also take the Pardon Our Dust. I actually just crafted mine. I need to level this up a little bit, but any kinetic grenade launcher will be a great pairing for the build. Allows us to debuff those big targets before using Grand Overture. In my energy slot, I am using the Ikelos SMG. I did finally craft this. I am using the Feeding Frenzy Volt Shot Roll. It's an incredibly strong SMG, and having Volt Shot on it allows us to have some extra ad clear from our primary weapon. And then of course the Grand Overture itself, I do recommend completing the Catalyst on this weapon. This maximizes the stability, gives us some nice added handling, and it will also blind anything that the missiles hit and causes them to explode, sort of like chain reaction, for some bigger AoE damage. I do recommend going for 100 resilience if possible. This is going to give you some really nice damage resistance and survivability. I also recommend going for as much discipline as possible so that we always have our storm grenade. We can constantly be generating those elemental wells combined with Heart of Inmost Light. We always have our abilities. It's very easy to have that Font of Might bonus going all the time. A few extra mods I recommend using on your helmet. You want to take Harmonic Siphon and Ashes to Assets. This makes it so we can generate those orbs of power from our arc weapons, and our grenade kills are going to give us some extra super energy. This makes it so we get Thunder Crash back really fast and really passively. On our arms, I do recommend taking Impact Induction if you can. Causing damage with our melee will reduce our grenade cooldown. You can really use any of the arm mods here, whatever fits your build the best, but I recommend this one as it's a nice way to add in some extra ability energy. Grand Overture has always been a really unique weapon, but last season we saw a machine gun buff to rank and file enemies, which Grand Overture takes advantage of, and now with that 50% increase to the missile damage, it's a very strong exotic heavy weapon. It's a ton of fun to use, and even the regular mode can chunk those big enemies really easily. It's very unique, sort of makes you feel like one of those Cabal Colossus that has the slug launcher. It's a really cool thematic weapon in that way. But when we use that missile barrage, we can seriously get some huge damage in on bosses and bigger enemies. Just a quick video for you guys. Wanted to go over the weapon. You definitely want to try this out this season, and I wanted to give you a nice build to use along with it. There will be a dim loadout link down in the description so you can click on it and get this set up for yourself. And if you enjoyed the video, again, do me a favor, leave a like down below, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.